Hi, my name is Zena.
Hi, I'm Amaris,
and this is the Sidewalk
Senate podcast. Hello, welcome back to the Sidewalk Senate podcast. I'm Amaris.
I'm Zena.
And today we are going to talk about something that impacts every single person in Trinidad and Tobago, and that every single person in Trinidad and Tobago should have at least for...
It's not just Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, yeah, worldwide. It's something that impacts each and every human being, or should, and it is the issue of education. What is so pivotal about education in Trinidad and Tobago that we need to address is, in the face of the global pandemic brought on by the spread of the coronavirus, we have realized that a lot of the systems in our country have needed to undergo extremely major adjustment in order to accommodate and facilitate the continuance of these systems, even while trying to stop the spread and to slow the spread of the COVID-19 virus. So one of those systems is education, and we've noticed that during the pandemic we got a new minister of education, two new ministers of education, after our elections last year in August. What date was that? I can't remember.
August 10th or
right,
something.
Around August. So we would have been able to experience a changing of the guards, and thankfully so, if I do say so myself, because our last minister of education, no, I need to say it, our last minister of education did not seem to possess the vision that was needed to propel the education system in the direction of the rest of the world. In short, he was
too
old
That's
and too laid back.
Stuck in his ways.
And yeah, he was still in a time warp that consisted of 10 years between 1940 and 1950, reading, writing, and arithmetic days. And that is not conducive, productive, or necessary in the 21st century.
Or progressive.
I mean, come on. So, sorry, but...
Stop dissing
No, I'm not dissing the man, no. I'm not dissing the man. I'm just speaking about...
I know, but he's spending
because
good
I am
time.
traumatized. I'm just... This is residual trauma speaking. But anyway, back to where we are presently. So we've all been experiencing this panoramic for the past year, unfortunately, over a year. And schools have in Trinidad and Tobago been officially closed since March.
Yeah, it's about a year.
March, this month will be a year since school children have not been to school en masse. However, there have been some accommodations made where the children would have been getting their education via the World Wide Web, pick up the internet, because it's necessary now. And classrooms are now virtual. Teachers teach virtually, children play virtually. Exams administered virtually, assignments submitted virtually. Everything is virtual. So what I really wanted to talk to us about and talk with Zena about is, what observations have you made, Zena, in terms of the major changes in the education system since the pandemic has started, specifically in Trinidad and Tobago?
Right. The first obvious major change was the shift from face-to-face teaching to online teaching. I would say that we transitioned pretty smoothly. Some people might have taken some time to catch up, but in general, the move to virtual online teaching, I think it was pretty smooth. People were able to access devices. They were able to access the internet, and in areas where it was not it was unavailable, they were able to have other provisions for them to access the schoolwork. So that is obviously the first major change that we've had. The other thing, which I think, I won't say that we've had a major change, but something that they need to focus on is the way that we are doing examinations and the way that it's being administered.
Yeah.
And I think that they need to have a discourse around that and whether it makes sense anymore. Well, I mean, it probably didn't make sense before, but whether it makes sense anymore to try to do this high-stake examination at the end of primary school or at the end of secondary school to move on to the other phase in life. And so they need to find a way to do some type of assessment, if need be, in order for the students to move forward. And I think that is where we are stuck, not just in Trinidad, but in the world, because all over the world, exams have been postponed or cancelled until further notice. So I think that's where we are stuck. And I think that's what needs, it needs thoughts.
Okay, I'm glad you bring up the issue of exams, because just looking at the different systems different educational systems put in place in different countries, particularly who we would call first world countries, they don't have exams equivalent to SEA, where the children have to take a test in order to go to the next major stage of their education. They literally just, because of their age, they might have to do like series of tests to make sure that they are ready. But in terms of qualifying exams, a lot of countries don't have that. So to me, even in the face of the pandemic and in the face of us realizing that, okay, at this stage, at least for the next few years, it wouldn't be feasible for students to gather, to have in large numbers, to have exams, and it might not be the safest thing. Are they really necessary? Because, I mean, you could go to primary school from first year to standard 5, and you cannot tell me that your entire education for the past 7 years boils down to one exam on one day, where they test you on what, three subjects?
3 subjects.
Oh, gosh.
No, I think they have, well, I think it's like coursework. I think they have social studies and stuff now, no?
I'm not sure, you know. For
me,
I think they would have done like continuous assessment.
Yeah, like coursework or something.
Yeah, and then, but the exam itself, the co-exam is still maths, English, and creative writing.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
I mean, the other countries, whilst they may not have a secondary school or high school entrance examination, they still have examinations at the end of their senior year in high school, and they still have examinations like SAT to enter universities, and in Britain they still have GCE. Yeah. So whilst we may want to say, you know, we need to find a different, whilst we may want to say we need to do away with the examinations, at the same time we need to find a way to replace that system, because especially at the secondary school level, how do you account for, how do you account for who gets a scholarship or who gets into a university? You know, like places where there are scarce spots. How do we go about doing that? So in those cases, maybe the examinations might be good. I'm not sure how they're going to go about doing it. Like if they were to do it differently. But primary school, and then the thing about our primary school system is that we have these schools that are not supposedly at an equal level. So if we do away with the SEA, then how do we determine who goes to which school based on what?
I think that what we are trying to do and have been trying to do in this country is, on one hand, we want to get away from the colonial structure that would have been put in place based on our modeling after the British, because, I mean, at a point we would have had A-levels and GCE here. So now we have our Caribbean examinations.
But it's the same model.
But it's the same model.
The same thing.
And, I mean, it is not compatible for the type of society that we have, in the sense that, okay, globally, yes, we know that not every student might be academically inclined. There are students who they learn
In
through
different ways.
right.
Yeah.
They learn through practical experience. There are students who they have to find a creative way to present the information to them in order for them to retain it. There are students who they see a book and they immediately shut down.
Yeah.
Like they have like a mental block to books, but if you put it in visual format, it would be more palatable for them. We as Trinbagonians, because I mean, not only the Ministry of Education will be responsible, at the end of the day, the parents have to know the kind of children they have. You know, the people in the community as well have to know the kind of children that we have, because it really takes a village. But what we need to do, I think, this pandemic should have showed us that it is easy to say, okay, we transitioning from in-person classes to virtual classes. But what about the students who their forte is woodwork and welding and sewing, those kinds of things? How are you going to teach these things virtually unless they have all the machinery and the workroom and everything at home, and they're looking at someone demonstrating via camera? It's not feasible. So I feel as though we need to shuffle the cards a little bit.
Yeah.
And really look to deconstruct from SEA to, no, not even SEA, from national tests in standard 1 to 4 to SEA to NCSE to CSEC to CAPE. We need to deconstruct all these things. I mean, it works, I guess, for some, because what it seems to us in this country is that the majority of our students are academically inclined. But what about what we don't hear about is the students who drop out of school at an alarming rate.
So then I think that one way that we might be able to remedy that is have more technical institutes, because the programs that we have is for a certain age group. I believe it's for like 16 and over, 18 and up. But what if you could get into a technical institute at the 12, age of 12 or 13 and you learn a trade or something that you're more interested in? I think in general, the school system focuses a lot on academics, and there isn't much holistic teaching. And even if it's holistic, a lot of what we learn, especially in academics, it's taught without context. So then you get people saying things like, why we learn trigonometry? Why I had to learn Pythagoras?
Why did we learn that though?
I could talk about why we learned it, but I'm not going to get into there. And how come I never had to use this in my life? Like, to be honest, if you wanted to be doing Pythagoras theorem every day, you would have found out where you could have done it. The fact is that it wasn't interesting to you. But what I'm saying is that if the teacher taught with more context, they would have been able to show you, well, this is how this come in. Because, I mean, people didn't just make up things out of thin air. It had to be a problem that they were trying to solve. And so if they do away with the examinations, it will change the way in which the teachers teach the syllabus. Because they're no longer teaching you to pass the exam. They're teaching you to act like they actually teaching you to understand the work.
And I think that is something that our teachers are sadly lacking. A lot of teachers, while we have a lot of dedicated teachers, we have a lot of lazy teachers who have gotten into the profession because they saw it as a way to be permanently employed and still get months and months and months of vacation every year. Imagine during this pandemic, parents going crazy trying to teach their children, and let's be honest, some parents not able. There are teachers that literally have done nothing. They have not made attempts to contact their students. They have not made attempts to teach anybody, even A for apple, B for bad. They did nothing. They were sitting down home, scratching like the rest of us, trying not to catch COVID, and just not doing their jobs. So if it is we remove that restriction, and I mean I'm talking about not just secondary school, I'm talking about primary school teachers. Primary school are your formative years. So you can't tell me you teaching because you have a standard 1 class and they don't have SCA, you just don't care. Or you have a second year class. You're telling yourself, oh, they had time. Excuse me? Do your job. But yeah, teachers have to readdress their minds to only teaching the children a cup full of knowledge just so that they could pass a 2-hour exam or hour and a half long exam. But if you're teaching, it's because you're teaching to educate, to make sure that the knowledge you're passing on, they understand that it is necessary. And I feel as though that is why a lot of students nowadays, they don't see, after a certain time, they don't see the relevance in continuing their education for whatever reason. And I mean, your education should never have just been restricted to academics. But, you know, it should have been a well-rounded program that includes, that is balanced on every side, where you present different options to persons so that they could see, not decide, because I mean, children can't make informed decisions, really, because they are children.
But on that same thing with providing different options, all right, like all the schools that I went to, let's take for instance secondary school, we were provided with like 25 different, we were introduced to or exposed to like 25 different subjects, right?
Yeah.
But how much of them they preparing us for CXC? It comes down to like 15.
Yeah.
So,
and then
you know, if you want to
do
food and nutrition, they don't have the provisions for that. You want to do, recently they started music and probably drama. And this is not just convent, this is in all schools.
Yeah.
So they're saying, yeah, we're trying to make a well-rounded student. But when it's time to choose subjects, it is only half of the subjects that they were exposing you to.
Right.
Between forms 1 and 3. So then what is the point?
And then all of that comes back down to the timeline, because they tell themselves that it would be very difficult for a student to adequately prepare themselves to do exams for 25 subjects in 2 years.
No, I have no problem with that, you know, but what I'm saying is the availability of the subject at that school,
right,
it was not there. The option was not there.
Yeah, because our school have
drama,
no
you can't do food and nutrition. If you do music in Form 5, they don't have it for Form 6. Well, I don't know if CXC has Form 6 music, but I'm just making an example. And then the groupings, I have a serious problem with the groupings, because at least for the school that we attended, I don't know about other schools, but I suppose it's the same. It's either your business students or science students.
Yeah.
Recently, they start modern studies with history and geography and whatnot, or a language students.
Yeah.
They already started streamlining you. So, for instance, in Form 6, I ended up in a position where, for CAPE exams, I had a clash between physics and English literature, because as far as they're concerned,
those who belong together,
yeah, if you're doing physics, you're most likely doing maths, which I did, but you will not be interested in literature, which is not true.
Yeah.
So I had to sit through 6 hours of exams back to back, because they didn't make provisions for that. And so I think that it should have more subjects available. Well, I mean, in the first place, we're talking about doing away with the examination. So maybe if they restructure the syllabus, restructure the entire school curriculum, it will make things more available to students. So if you can't learn it at a technical institute at that young age, like what I was referring to, then you can learn it at school.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up the point about your clash, because I mean, now that we are faced with COVID and having to do either continuous assessment to grade students or virtual examinations, now probably the Ministry of Education could look at not having these concrete days. So the 14th of April is maths, English paper 1, and the 15th is paper 2. But instead, allow
24 hours.
Allow students, not even 24 hours. If you want to do maths, you have a portal to access the maths
Yeah.
exam. If you want to do drama, you have a portal to access the drama exam. So things like
I
that.
think the reason for that is to provide like fairness and equity, because Amaris, I telling you, if I good at maths, I go in and do the maths, and I know you're not good at maths, I go and say, Amaris, these are the questions that came.
Yeah, because
and this is
that was my struggle.
and this is the answers. And this question came, and it was real hard. I think I get it wrong, but I think this, I ask somebody, and this is how you're supposed to do it. So you do it like this, so you can get it correct. So I think they have it in that rigid way to provide, I guess, fairness and equity. But if instead of doing, I'm not sure how possible it is for like secondary school, but at primary school level and all that, if you focus on continuous assessment, then it shouldn't be an issue, because it just, you assess them during the class.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that are put in place is to benefit teachers and school supervisors and principals and examiners, and not necessarily the students.
Yeah.
Because the timeline, everything is set up in a way that they have to be available. Is so even like CSEC exams, you get your results in July or August, because it's the same teachers who taught you going to correct your exam scripts. And they have to be paid additionally for that. Now, I have a serious issue with teachers wanting to be paid not just for the exams. I could understand, because really and truly, school not in session, that's your extra time. So, being paid to correct exams, I could understand that. But the ones who want money to mark SBAs and IAs, kill them sickening. They sickening.
Oh, you mean like to mark overall SBAs and IAs, so the whole country?
The same IA that you would have administered to the child, they want the ministry to pay them to mark it.
Like a teacher in school?
In school, yes. Yes, they want more money for that. So really and truly, are you all here for the students, or here for a good time, not a long time?
You know what's something I want to bring up? Because I saw this happen firsthand at work, and I want to know if it would happen with the students. Like, okay, when we were on the stay-at-home order, and we had work from home, the day the Prime Minister came and said, these different sectors could go back out. The day that I was able to go back out, they called us back out, and they did away with the entire work from home segment, which I find for me was better. And for a lot of the other employees at my company, it seemed as though it worked out better for them. I want to know if, like, okay, if things die down, will everything just go back to normal? Will they scrap virtual school? If they come up with any new way to do examinations, would they scrap that and go back to the old way of sitting exams? With, like, everything is just going to return back to how it was? And
I think that would be a total regression. That would be taking us back to the dark ages, because whether we like it or not, what this pandemic taught us was that we as a country really needed to evolve.
Yeah.
We needed to change a lot of our systems. And for most parents that I've spoken to, the homeschooling thing was terrible for them. But for a lot of people, it worked out better, because, for instance, this might be not a positive example, but for students who experience bullying in school.
Yeah.
I know of one person, their son was being bullied in school, and the person was saying, that since he's been attending virtual school, this child, he's been a lot happier. He's been, a lot more relaxed and whatnot. So in instances like that, or in instances where children, they may not have a learning disability, but they learn at a different pace to everybody else. It might take the overall class twice to get something. It might take that student 4 times to get it. So in the instances like that, where parents might want to look at your child and say, you know what, working from home, going to school virtually would be better suited for you. I hope that they still make it available, because I mean, to totally abandon the progress just because we COVID free, that would give me physical pain.
It sounds like something they would do though.
And
Something like that.
I know we're talking about education, but I just want to make a public plea to the powers that be. We need to resume working from home. Please, I beg.
We'd appreciate it.
I beg.
Please.
I beg of you. We need to resume working from home.
At least 3 days.
At least.
Something.
Oh gosh, I would be grateful for anything.
20 hours.
Something. Because this sitting in traffic is very ghetto. I would not recommend to anybody. It gets 0 stars. To have to go to work. No. we need. I'm laughing, but I'm crying on the inside. But yeah, anyway, I think we have come so far in a short space of time, and I really want to commend the efforts of the Ministry of Education. I know that they have made significant strides, but I also want to appeal to the teachers and the principal, the school supervisors, all of the parties involved. You all need to work
together.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the politics don't matter.
And the union, calling the union.
Oh gosh, bacchanalists that literally just there to make noise. I mean, you're all watching a whole panoramic going on outside and asking for more money. Come on. That is a little bit, I could understand that, it's been long overdue, but your timing is badly off. The focus should be the students, because whether we like it or not, regardless of how well our systems are in place, these students are going to have a really difficult time when they have to transition back into physical school. And for some students, it might be the first time they're attending physical school, even though they've been going to school for almost 2 years. So we need to get our lives together. We need to really look at the way we have progressed, and we need to endeavor as a country that we're going to continue to progress and not regress, because it would be a tragedy.
All right, so guys, that's it for our episode. We gave you all a lot to think about, whether they should revolutionize the entire school system, how is this going to affect the way teachers administer the syllabus, whether they should do away with high-stake examinations and have continuous assessments, how is this going to affect scholarships and universities, how is this even going to affect students in rural areas who do not have access to infrastructure and amenities. So let us know what you think in the comments, and look out for our next episode every Saturday at the time it drops. Thank you.
Bye.